Thousands of students have been protesting for last few days in Bangladesh, demanding the abolition of quotas in favor of a merit-based system for civil service jobs. The ruling party's wing, Bangladesh Chhatra League, has attacked the protesters, injured around 500 students just after the ruling prime ministers threatened the protesters. They also attack the students, those who are entering the emergency room for their treatment. So what is your stance on these ongoing massive protests in Bangladesh?
So we are aware of and are monitoring reports of widespread student protests in Dhaka and around Bangladesh that have killed 2 and attacked and injured hundreds. The freedom of expression and peaceful assembly are essential building blocks of any thriving democracy, and we condemn any violence against peaceful protesters. Our thoughts are with those who have been impacted by this violence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. A meeting was held a few days ago in Cairo regarding the arrangement of boarding between Egypt and Israel and the United States. While Egypt insists Israel to withdraw from Philadelphia corridor, Israel is stay there and control over this area. There is any new arrangement regarding this issue?
No new agreement, but it is something we are working on. Israel has very real security concerns about the Philadelphia corridor. That was a chief, if not primary, smuggling route for Hamas to get weapons into Gaza that they used to launch the attacks of October 7th, that they used to launch rocket attacks against Israel, that they used to oppress the Palestinian people. So it is important that that smuggling of weapons into Gaza be resolved. It's also important that we find a way to reopen the Rafah border crossing. So we have been in talks with Egypt and with Israel about how to accomplish all those objectives, but I don't have any announcements to make today with regards to any agreement. It's something that we're continuing to work on.
Okay. Next question, please. When will the United States condemn Israel targeting of civilians in Gaza, especially considering that U.S. administration is providing Israel with the weapons that killed the Palestinian civilian?
We are incredibly troubled by the ongoing deaths of Palestinians in Gaza. I've made that clear. I spoke to that earlier in the briefing in response to a question from one of your colleagues. Yes. As I said, it's an incredibly difficult situation. It remains an incredibly difficult situation. When you have not just Hamas militants, but if it turns out to be true that Mohammed Deif was actually hiding among civilians, one of the leaders, the number 2 in the leadership of Hamas in Gaza, was hiding among civilians in Gaza, it just shows the very difficult challenge that this war poses. Obviously, he is a legitimate military target. He has tremendous blood on his hands, including the blood of American citizens, I should remind everyone of. And so he is someone that Israel should be allowed to target and go after, but they have to do it in a way that minimizes, that prevents civilian casualties, and it's very difficult operating in this environment, but that doesn't in any way alleviate their responsibility to do so.
But is this justified to kill civilians, children?
There is no justification for the death of civilians. No, absolutely not. We don't want to see any civilians die. There is justification for strikes on military targets and militants, including the leadership of Hamas. And those are strikes that we support, but they need to be carried out in a way that, to the maximum, to the furthest extent possible, minimizes and prevents civilian harm. That is what we continue to press upon the government of Israel. As I said earlier, civilian casualties have come down fairly significantly from earlier in the war, but they still remain unacceptable. And that is why we continue to push for a ceasefire. It's why a ceasefire is so important, because then you wouldn't have kinetic activity inside Gaza that was leading to these civilian deaths day after day after day. You would have a pause in the conflict, a ceasefire that hopefully we could widen into an actual end to the war.
And also Israel needs strong words from the United States to condemn killed civilian, not only not allowed.
And I think I just made very clear that we are incredibly troubled by the deaths of civilians. And I can tell you, Secretary Blinken made that very clear in his meeting with senior Israeli officials earlier today.
But the United States wouldn't do something like this. I mean, there was time and time and time again that they actually held back striking, whether in Syria and Iraq, because some civilians were compromised. They have done that a number of times. So would the United States do what Israel just did?
I cannot speak to the exact circumstances about how targeting decisions are made. I spoke to the principles that we believe in and will continue to. Go ahead.
Sir, the Pakistani government has announced a ban on former Prime Minister Imran Khan's political party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. The information minister says that Imran Khan and his political party involved in anti-state activities. You always talk about democratic values. What are your thoughts when you see such kind of undemocratic moves in a country like Pakistan?
I don't know if you walked in late, but I got this question about 10, 12 minutes ago from Ryan and spoke to it.
He was mixing up with many questions. So
what's that? Oh, well, it's okay if you were surfing your phone instead of listening to my answers. It's fine. I'm happy, always happy to repeat myself. What I said in response to Ryan's question is that no, we've seen the reports and the statements made by the government. Our understanding, this is the beginning of a complex process, but certainly the banning of a political party is something that would be of great concern to us.
I think Ryan also asked about the Supreme Court decisions. The State Department expressed concerns after the elections in Pakistan and asked for the investigations. So when Supreme Court now handed over these 20 seats to Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, but this is something State Department was looking, that kind of investigation.
So as we've said, we support the peaceful upholding of constitutional and democratic principles, including respect for human rights and freedom of expression. We support democratic processes and broader principles, including the rule of law and equal justice under the law. And as those internal processes continue to play out, we will monitor these decisions and further decisions by the courts.
After Indian Prime Minister Modi visit to Moscow, both the countries decided to boost their trade relationships, and stats shows that last year the trade was $65 billion. President Zelensky, in his statement, termed this a devastating blow to the peace efforts. What are your comments on this multi-billion-dollar trade and Zelensky's remarks?
So India has a long-standing relationship with Russia. I think that's well known. And we have, speaking for the United States, encouraged India to utilize that relationship with Russia, that long-standing relationship, and the unique position that they have to urge President Putin to end his illegal war and to find a just peace, a lasting peace to this conflict, to tell Vladimir Putin to respect the UN Charter, to respect Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. And that's what we'll continue to impress upon the government of India, who is an important partner of ours when it comes to their relationship with Russia. Go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. Question on normalizing relations between Turkey and Syria. There is a lot of discussion on that issue in the region, and Iraq has took initiatives to set up a meeting between Ankara and Damascus to normalize relations between Turkey and Syria. How do you see that, and will that affect your policy towards Syria, especially to northwest Syria?
Let me take that question back.
And another question.
Yeah.
Recently, Iraqi foreign minister, he was in Washington and he talked to the press. He said that there is a lot of engagement and discussion with the U.S. about restrictions on the Iraqi banks, U.S. restriction on Iraqi banks. And they are requiring and requesting the U.S. to remove these restrictions. Do you see any positive signs from the Iraqi banks that they changed their behavior, their links with the Iraqi militia groups, and sending dollars to Iran?
I think that's a question I'm going to refer to my colleagues at the Treasury Department. And with that, we'll wrap for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.